Hey you guys, welcome to the Walking Dead After Show here on theStreamtv. For those of you who are on the YouTube chat, thanks for joining us. Make sure you invite your friends to join the chat. I have my awesome co-host here with me, Sue Castillo to my left, Mr. Michael J. Tiberi to the right. Happy Halloween, you guys. I hope you had an awesome Halloween. We're just gonna dive right into this episode because it was a very interesting episode, to say the least. I think I want to touch on first, before we touch on the episode, the Hollywood Reporter was doing a story about how Stephen Yeun's name is not in the credits anymore. He plays Glenn, and I just think that's a very interesting thing. He has nothing to do with this episode. I just wanted to bring that up because it's kind of like the first in the Walking Dead history that they've done this, and I just wanted to kind of throw it out there, see what you guys think about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I was kind of thinking to myself, like, okay, his name isn't there. It's fine. It's fine. He's not in this episode. That's what it is. We need closure.
See, I feel like it's like they're trying to throw us off, maybe,
I agree. I
right?
absolutely agree with you on that. I think that people are like, no, like they wouldn't do it if it wasn't true. I'm like, it wouldn't be the first time anybody in Hollywood's lied about something. So, you know what I mean? Like, I think that they are just taking it out to kind of throw off the scent a little bit. But it's like, I agree with you that I think they're playing with us a little bit.
Yeah.
I think because otherwise, if they kept his name in, people would continue to be like, oh, then he really isn't dead. They want us to all believe that he's dead. He's not really dead.
Yeah.
Well, tweet us. Let us know what you guys think. I know that Glenn wasn't in this episode, but I just wanted to throw that out there. In reference to this episode, Morgan was a very heavy character portrayed in this episode. An hour and a half.
Yeah.
Of Morgan.
His birthday month. Taking an entire month to himself.
One thing that I want to kind of touch up on in just the beginning of the episode, I just love how the season of The Walking Dead is kind of hinting on time and stuff like that. So you kind of mentioned it while we were watching the episode.
Yeah, because in the previous episode, they were talking, they used the black and white and the color to, differentiate between past and present. And then in this episode, it started off with using, text saying now and then probably about halfway through the episode, they didn't, use that anymore. You just kind of knew, yes, he's talking to the wolf leader and stuff like that. And I feel like that whole callback to the timeline and using, flashbacks and forwards in the storytelling is really nice, especially since we were missing Morgan for so long. I said it. I was like, Hot Miss Morgan, I miss you. And we got a full buttload episode of you. Yeah. And my God.
We got a lot.
An hour and a half of an episode. And Morgan went crazy. He was crazy. I can kind of understand why he would go zen after all of that craziness because, I mean, it was crazy. So let's talk about Morgan and his craziness. He's in this forest. He's clearing out zombies.
Yeah.
He's lighting fires, which I found actually
Burning
kind of
them.
interesting. Yeah, I feel like he was lighting the fires and stuff like that to kind of draw the other walkers in the area to him, just to make it easier for him to clear them. What did you guys think of that?
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I think that Morgan would do whatever it took to draw him in, because at that point he kept referencing, I have to clear. That was like his constant go back, his throwback to, you know what I mean? So I would absolutely agree that, anything that he could do to attract them to an area, he was down to do.
Oh, he was definitely holding his own Burning Man session. Like, it was insane. And all those walkers were coming out and he was clearing them, and then that little... I call that little Bambi clearing that was just like gorgeousness and beauty. Like, I thought Thumper was going to come out. It was just beautiful. And then he was just like, gotta clear. And I was like, what the heck? How are you going to introduce something so beautiful and like just serene
and just ruin it?
And throw hotness into it and just, we're not going to talk about the clearing? Like,
well, not only was he saying clear, he was saying a few things like you only get one, and obviously the title episode, here is not here, and you're not supposed to be here, which Sue, you kind of referenced while you were watching the episode of correlating the quote that somebody else had said in 2 episodes ago when our guest LeBrandon Shade was on. He said to Morgan, you're not supposed to be here. And then Morgan in this episode said, you're not supposed to be here. What do you guys think what do you think he was trying to say?
I think that was on purpose, really, because when I watched the episode at the beginning and he's just going bananas by himself, like, clear, here's not here, and just, shouting, you're not supposed to be here. And I was just like, wait a minute, I remember that. And I mean, come on, it's not coincidence. Like the universe life is not that lazy to have a coincidence like that, to where Morgan is then with, LeBrandon's character, one of the wolves, who says, you're not supposed to be here. So it's just kind of like, we're all not supposed to be here. And for him to say that to Morgan when Morgan was sparing his life and then wrapping him up in that chicken wire, I mean, I can't help but feel like when Carol popped, him right in front of him, he couldn't help but see himself.
Yeah.
So I felt like that was a very poignant thing, and I'm sure other fans of the show maybe saw that or thought of it. But there was a lot of Morgan Wolf, comparisons really that I saw. So
Yeah.
I mean, he was a mess.
True.
Killing.
And then he killed those people.
Oh, that moment. I mean, the moment that guy walked, when he saw them following him, and then that moment that guy stepped forward and it was like, ka-jink, right in the throat. I was like,
What is with the throat?
Yeah, I was like, can we not?
He's
maybe?
trachea guy number 2.
Yeah, trachea guy number 2. That's like the second time somebody got jacked in the throat.
And then he strangled the other guy with his bare hands. That
Yes.
takes a lot.
Yeah.
That takes
That's
a lot.
3
of
throat
force.
incidents.
Yeah.
In 2
He is
episodes.
obviously, going for, the throat in all senses.
It's winter. Can we give the throat a break?
Can we just get a scarf or something?
I've got
cover
a
that
scarf.
up?
My
Something.
throat hurts. But yeah, he was going to town, and then
This episode brought to you by Lipton.
by Lipton.
As they go for the throat.
But yeah, it was very intense. Like, I was shocked. I
Yeah.
told you I missed Hot Mess Morgan.
But that's some deep anger inside of that, though. You know what I mean? Like, when you physically have to just strangle somebody, and the moment in the throat, like, he was going for these gruesome
But they were
kills.
hunting him down too. If you think about it, I mean, they were chasing him, and then the guy was saying he was sorry.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, you're sorry. I'm not gonna lie. You're sorry because you got caught and strangled.
Well, were they really trying to get Morgan though? Were they really trying to?
I don't
to
really
team
think
up
so.
and I think they were
Yeah.
maybe just following him, maybe gonna ask him for directions.
No.
I don't know.
Ask
you
him
wanna-
for the Wi-Fi password. I think
No.
all of those were possible.
No, he
I
had
think
to.
they were gonna jump him.
Yes, I think they were definitely gonna jump him and take his rifle. They saw him have his gun.
Well, anyway, Morgan is going crazy,
Right.
and then he hears this goat, who we learn is Tabitha, and then he happens to come upon Eastman, who I thought is not in the comic books, but I thought this was a very interesting character because he had hinted that he learned this whole like Jedi samurai sword thing, which we learned is, what is it called?
You gotta look at the Asian and ask.
Sue, what is it?
It's Aikido.
Aikido, yeah. So he learns this fighting technique, Aikido, from Eastman, the cheesemaker, which I really thought was a very interesting.
Yeah.
I loved that scene when he first, discovered Tabitha, and Eastman was like, well, could you not, because I'm still learning to make cheese.
Yeah.
And what else did he say? There was one other line there where he was like, can we have a meal? I'm still trying to learn something. I like it was like he was
Yeah.
just very honest
Yeah,
for a moment. He's
yeah,
like, can you just not do anything to the goat? Like, I'm still trying to work some things out here.
Yeah, like,
Makes-
hey, I don't mind having you over, but could you not be a dick about, messing things up?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that was really
He was
funny.
trying the doors, and he was like, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
You could just.
Right,
Yeah.
and then he whacks him over the head, knocks him out, and puts him in a cage.
Well, that's what
and
they
then we
get.
kind of find out a lot more about this character, Eastman. And, he was a forensic psychiatrist, which I thought was really interesting because it's like The Walking Dead plays on so many different levels because then he diagnoses Morgan with, PTSD, which Sue wanted to kind of touch up on with the whole PTSD thing. Because
Yeah.
at first you were kind of annoyed.
I'm not gonna lie. Anytime a show touches base on, post-traumatic stress disorder, of course it's always affiliated. It's usually mostly affiliated when it comes to military, active duty, or even veterans. So when a show talks about it, I feel like the way they write it is just so cartoony. I feel like they don't really talk to individuals who suffer from PTSD, so they really don't have any idea. They just write what they think it looks like or what have you, and so I feel like it's just disconnected. So as soon as he was talking about PTSD, I was just like, ugh, epic Robert Downey Jr. eye roll. And then when he made that comment about, I know it's like walking through the door and you're trying to walk through that door and you just wind up in the same place, but that door is open again and you still find yourself trying to go through that door, and it's that hope. You hope that the results will change, but you keep doing the same thing over and over again, and it never does change. And I'm not gonna lie, I squidged up just a little bit. I was like, finally, somebody wrote it right.
Yeah.
You know, and they did. They got it right. Every time Morgan was like ready to put hands on somebody, you know, it would have that blurry, shaky kind of earthquakey feel, and it was that panic feeling, and you could see that his environment would blur out.
Yeah.
But he would be completely like laser focused on. You could see him, and I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like, you know, I suffer from PTSD, and that is what it feels like. When you're going through those bouts, nothing else exists. It is survival. It is, you're in that feeling. And so I felt like this episode really captured it. I think that's the only thing I really did like, is that they captured it right.
Well, I kind of feel, I mean, it kind of opened my eyes a little bit to PTSD, because I think it's kind of like a form of slavery, but in your mind. And Michael kind of touched up on this whole, you know, how he was in this locked cage, but the door was always open. And he didn't even think to go for the door because he's already trapped here.
Oh, so
Wow.
Why would you,
There you go. That is very deep.
I mean, you know, and then he finally comes out of the door, and then Eastman is like, I give you two choices. These are the two choices that you have. And then he goes kind of crazy again.
Yeah.
And the one thing that Eastman said to me that stood out to me was, I will not allow you to kill me. And I thought that was so powerful, because we learned that this character has obviously gone through a lot, but for him to sit here and go, I will not allow you to kill me, says a lot about who he is as a person.
Yeah.
And the fact that he has grown through this zombie apocalypse and is a stronger person for that.
I think it also says a lot that in that scene, Morgan finally gets up and then he walks back in the cell and then closes the door. It's like you have become a prisoner in your own mind and body, that anything else is so painful, you would rather go back into that prison, because that's all you. Yeah,
safer.
and then how Eastman was just like, man, fuck your door. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just just like, forget your door, and he just opens it, and then I was like, you know, Morgan gonna like throw a tantrum, and he did. He like kicked and closed the door finally. Like, I've close it.
Yeah.
You know, so I was just like, it was a nice culmination of where we see those two characters face off with one another, and that it's like, no, we're at an impasse. We're not moving.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we see, obviously, Morgan struggle throughout the episode of debating on whether or not he wants to follow in, you know, the steps of Eastman or kind of stick in his PTSD-trapped world. And he does battle with it, which I'm glad that they showed this inner battle of what he's going through. And he winds up leaving at one point, and he happens upon a couple, which I kind of want to touch up on, because I thought that was interesting. The walker is obviously going to attack them, and then he kills them, or kills the walker. Yeah. And for a second, I was like, oh, he might just kill this couple. And then she like is taking out her bag, and I was like, does she think that he's robbing them? I was like, is that what's happening? And then she puts the can of soup in the bullet, and then they say thank you, and then they walk away.
Yeah, chicken noodle soup with a bullet on the side.
Was like, oh.
It's all you could ask for in that time.
And I was like, is that payment? And then why did she give him a bullet? I was like, he doesn't have a gun. Why did she?
I don't know if that was some sort of, you know, metaphor for peace there or whatnot she was saying, but I thought it was interesting that there was absolutely no exchange. Like, it was kind of just like the understanding of like, she set it down, and then they simply turned around and were like, we're gonna go now, but thank you.
Yeah.
That was interesting to me, but I kind of loved that moment for Morgan, to be honest. I really did.
I thought it was just, I think it was one of those moments where if Morgan's gonna give anybody like, you know what, I'm a changed man kind of moment, is somebody the only valuable they have is a can of chicken noodle soup and one bullet, no gun.
Yeah.
Like, what are you gonna do with a bullet? Like, she held on to it. So
Yeah.
it's just like, how sad is that? You better let them live. And he did, so
Yeah.
good on him.
And they looked exhausted. They looked as they had been, you know what I mean? Like, it would have been too easy of a kill for him, honestly, to go after. Like, that would have been merciless.
That's a pity kill, yeah.
That would have been no mercy. Like, how could you do that? Because they were just, you could tell they were innocent. They just, you know.
They're gonna get picked off anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean,
And this is obviously a little bit after, you know, Morgan has gotten trained by, you know, Eastman in this Aikido kind of life, this kind
It's
of
the
technique.
Asian IKEA. No, I'm just kidding.
And then he goes back to camp, and you know, poor Tabitha. Tabitha is dead. I was really upset about Tabitha, you guys. This show does not like animals. I will say this for the record. I mean, they kill horses, they kill animals, they leave the freaking animals in the pet shop. I just don't like how they kill animals all the time. I'm just very upset by that.
Yeah, they do not have a soft spot for animals. That's for sure.
Yeah. So we're gonna go to our first break, and tweet us your questions. Go on to the YouTube chat. I've got Michael on there, and then we'll shout you guys out.
Yes.
We'll be back in a second.
Just in case you missed it live.
In case you missed it live.
In case you missed it live.
In case you missed it live, this is for you.
I love it. That was freaking love it.
Oh my God.
I didn't see any of this coming. Yeah, I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah?
I was like,
How did you get here? No.
kill him. Kill him. Definitely kill him. We're cool. Shade. Shade left and right, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies, let's put your 2 cents in.
Rubbed me the wrong way in the right way.
but you were like, well, we want to know what's gonna happen.
That was killed.
We just want to say we love you all. Thank you so much for your support. You are all seriously the best in the world. and we
Another
appreciate
beautiful
you so
summer
much.
at theStream.tv, y'all.
Here we go, guys.
Thank you for being here. Peace out.
Bye, guys.
Something chat.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Walking Dead After Show here on theStream.tv. We're talking about this Morgan Heavy episode, and I just want to kind of touch up on Eastman's character a little bit more and his background of this Crichton Dallas Wilton guy. I mean, that was powerful, you guys. This whole like, because he was a forensic psychiatrist, and he had this patient, I guess, and he said he treated like 825 people, and he only found one person that was extremely evil, and it was this Crichton Dallas Wilton guy. And we come to find out that, you know, he tried to warn the guards, and he almost got choked out, and then he like kept him in jail, but then he got out, which is, you know, criminal justice system.
Yeah.
There you go. Thanks, America. And he gets out and he kills his entire family.
Yeah, it was awful.
And I just think I feel like Morgan could really relate to that, you know?
It was the first, you know what's crazy is that I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like it's the first story that was ever shared of someone who had a loss that had nothing to do with the zombie apocalypse. Like, it happened before the world technically fell apart, and so it kind of touches base on the fact that there were bad people before the end of the world, and then what happened to those people when it fell apart, you know?
Still bad.
They got worse. They're at Terminus. That's where they are.
Hey, wolves.
The person who cut you off in traffic is gonna still push you over when the walker is behind you.
Oh, yeah, they will.
Yeah, no change in attitude.
Yeah, so that is absolutely insane that he tells that story, and it's I expected it to be like, oh, Walker ate them, you know? But no, it was like this guy murdered him before everything fell apart, and then what do you do with something like that?
Well, I mean, he got his revenge.
Well, he did something.
I mean, he he found this man and he locked him in this cage for 47 days, you guys, and he watched him starve to death. Do you think that was a little much? How do you guys feel about that?
Well, I think it's funny how Eastman begins with, teaching like this. It was like a Karate Kid montage between Eastman and Morgan with the Aikido and like reading from the
Art of Peace.
Art of Peace, and just all life is precious. And then you tell this story, and I'm not gonna lie, when he told the story early on, I was like, that man found that man and murdered him. And then when he does say that he let him starve.
Yeah, that's intense. That's a very slow and painful death, I feel like. You know what I mean? Like and for, exactly like you said, for a guy who's like practically a walking inspirational quote, for him, for him to then be like, oh, and by the way though, for 47 days I let a person die. I just gave him no food. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah,
Were you just telling me to live every day like my last?
He didn't even break his stride when he did that. He was like, oh, by the way, I let a man starve for 47 days. It's like, what?
Yeah, just in passing, like no big deal.
Yeah,
BTW.
I let a guy starve. Eastman.
47 days. Did you know you could live that long?
Every day in that cell, like each day he woke up and looked at this man and said,
But I also
and
gotta give like some props to that guy for hanging on for 47 days. Because I feel like after hour 3 of me not eating, I'm like, I choose to just euthanize myself at this point.
Oh no.
So then Morgan has his little relapse, and then we see that moment with him having to go after one of the people that he strangled early on in the episode, and I love how they tied that in.
Yeah.
And then he can't do it because PTSD acts up, and then Eastman winds up getting bitten, and
Yeah, isn't that crazy? It was I know I'm not the only one who thinks that this was such a Nicholas moment, because Nicholas did that. He was faced with like a wave of people he has left behind on supply runs from, you know what I mean? And then he kind of PTSD's out and does what he does, doesn't survive. Morgan does the same thing, and he almost got bit. I think the rule of thumb in Walking Dead season is don't be a Nicholas.
Right.
Just don't.
So then he has to kill Eastman, unfortunately. And then we see all these, we saw them earlier in the episode, but all these tombs and all these gravestones, which I thought was interesting for Eastman's character because, he says all life is precious, and then we're sitting here going, well, you kill walkers. Like, they were people once too. But he has a certain respect for them where he looks at their IDs and he gives them a grave.
Absolutely.
And it's a lot more humane than burning them, which was what Morgan was doing. It's kind of like right and wrong or black and white in reference to the first episode. And the last thing that Eastman says to Morgan is, you could stay here, but don't stay here because you were alone, and don't be alone. And I feel like that has a lot of impact on a lot of the characters in The Walking Dead. Like, for example, Michonne. Michonne was alone and she was by herself too. And we obviously see that he doesn't stay there, which is good. I'm glad that he didn't stay there. And then fast forward to Alexandria, and he's got the wolf on the floor. I'm glad that they kind of wrapped that up because I thought he killed him.
Yeah. I did too.
Was like, oh, he killed him in the last episode, but he didn't. And he's looking at this wolf, and he realizes that is his Crichton Dallas Wilton. That this man is so inherently evil that he needs to put a stop to it. And what does he do? He locks him.
Leaves him in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he locks that door, but he gonna let him starve for 47 days? Is he gonna let him starve?
I don't know. That's what we want to know. So we're gonna go to our fan questions.
Okay.
So we've got Janine Wake on Facebook. She said, "Are they just going to ignore our grief about Glenn leaving us in the dark? This is just mean." We kind of touched up on it in the first episode with his name not being in the credits anymore.
Yeah.
Would you guys be upset if Glenn wasn't in the episode? I know
Hell
you would.
yes.
Be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hell yes,
Absolutely.
I'd be upset.
So you don't think it's time for Glenn to go?
No.
You listen, like I think you had mentioned this before. You said in the comic books, Glenn had a heroic out. You know what I mean? He lived up to his character. the entire journey that Glenn had traversed. So it's to have him go out with because of Nicholas, it just doesn't make any sense at all. And so I honestly feel, and then also it's, you know, Maggie and Glenn is the central love story of this show. You cannot let a love like that just completely go that way. There has to be, even though it's tragic, there has to be some kind of closure. I kind of feel like they're going to bring Glenn back, and we're going to see it. This was a whole lot of Morgan. You could have teased something about Glenn.
I think they did that like on purpose. They were like, we're gonna just leave them hang.
We're not gonna tell you to the season
for
finale.
Morgan's birthday month. We're gonna have to sit here and wait. But yeah, I wish they would have had, like you said, just give us a little taste, just a little.
I mean, they touched up on it in the preview when you know, I forgot who's talking to Maggie, but he's like, "Don't go," and she's like gearing up, and she's like, "No, I have to." I think that she's gonna go after Glenn, and I think that in the next episode they're gonna kind of wrap that up. But we'll see. We'll see.
I hope so.
We've got a Twitter question from @AinsleyHope. I thought this was a great question. She says, "Do you think each main character's death serves a greater purpose to the plot?" So I guess in reference to Glenn. Yeah. If he is dead, what purpose would that serve to this story and this group?
Not this way. Not this way, because it's like, you know, when they say if a tree falls in the forest, like do you hear? I don't know. I saw a meme where it was like Roddy Piper or something like that. If he goes woo or something. Anyways, the point is, if Glenn falls and there's no one there to witness his fall, like what purpose does that really serve? Because you know, a character like Shane. When Shane died, Carl was a witness to it, and Rick. Yeah. And it served a purpose because it had to propel Rick to where he is now to make those tough calls. And now Rick is kind of being a Shane.
But do you think that this could still be that same kind of propelling motion if, even though if it, you know, like you said, if a tree falls in the wood, doesn't make a sound, but it's like if Glenn falls and gets eaten by a zombie, does anybody get affected by it? I mean, I think
they will.
Yeah, of course.
But
and I think that
it won't have the same. I feel like it won't have the same impact. I mean, look at how like Noah wasn't in that many episodes, and quite frankly, Noah left Beth behind. So it's like, I'm not really feeling you, Noah, when you died. But Glenn saw Noah die in the most horrific way because Nicholas was being selfish. Even though Noah's not really a lead character, but he was starting to become the ensemble, his death did serve a purpose, and Glenn seeing it so viscerally, it changed Glenn. Glenn could have done to Nicholas, and like he had justifiable reasons to break that dude's neck.
Yeah.
And he didn't. And see, you know what I mean? So it's like you have to see that end for there to be purpose. I think it will affect them.
Yeah.
But if they don't see it, come on, man.
I know, it's like you almost, if there's somebody of that caliber of Glenn dying, it's like you want it to be almost so much, and not that wasn't dramatic, but it's like you want it to be so much more than what it was. You know, like that just I felt jaded. If that is how he goes out, I feel extremely jaded.
Yeah, it's like if somebody breaks up with you over a text, it's like...
Yeah.
Really?
That was almost a breakup over like a tweet.
Yeah.
That was
or
like a DM. Yeah. Slide into my DMs and break up with
All right, so predictions for next week. What do you guys think is going to happen?
That is tough. It was tough because I think that we weren't given a lot to work with from this episode.
I will say in this last episode, in the last like 20 seconds, we hear Rick at the end of the episode go, "Open the gates," which I guess is in reference to, if you had closed captioning on, you can see it was Rick, because there was a lot of controversy going on about who's that voice. I think it's Rick, and I think that he's coming to warn them that this horde of zombies is coming for Alexandria. What predictions do you guys have?
And we kind of got left off with Rick in the RV.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, I don't know, I didn't know where to go with that, because my prediction was, because you said his voice there was at the end of the episode. My prediction was that, how is he getting out of that situation in the RV? And I I don't necessarily have a prediction for that.
Right.
I just was like, that
You're
was
just curious.
Mine is just a, like, I just want to know what happens kind of thing. Like, I've like lost hope on predictions because I'm constantly wrong. So, like.
You're not wrong if you follow his predictions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
follow
I
my
should follow
predictions.
your prediction
Yeah.
at all times, but when I try and go out on a limb and make my own, they're always a catastrophe.
Yeah. Well, we want to hear your guys' predictions. So go ahead and subscribe now to theStream.tv here on YouTube, and continue to tweet us throughout the week using the hashtag TWDAS, and check out our friends over at undeadwalking.com because they share some amazing things. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Bye, guys.